You can go ahead and grab a seat. Man, what a treat it is for me to be here. Do you guys know how good you have it, Mosaic? Do you know? I'm just telling you, I've been a huge fan of Mosaic, Pastor Irwin, his family for a long time from a distance. But can I just tell you, even being here, being up close, you guys, it's even better in person. And the spirit that is in this house is so incredibly beautiful. And I came to remind you that sometimes you can be so close to something and it can be so familiar that you don't realize how special it is. And you guys have one of the best thinkers and pastors in the world, Pastor Irwin McManus, that I just want to say happy birthday, Pastor Irwin. It was his birthday, and he was like, if there's one thing I could get for my birthday, it would be to have Tim Moore come and preach at Mosaic. And so I just wanted to honor your wish, Pastor Irwin. And can I just say, Pastor Irwin and his family have been so instrumental in just the last several years of my life. And I just want to take a moment and just honor you do. You have an incredible pastor, a brilliant communicator, an amazing author. I mean, he's done it all, but he is a gift to the world. And I just want you to know how special it is that you guys have Pastor Irwin leading your church, your community. So just wanted to take a moment. Anytime I get to travel and speak, I always feel like I don't come alone, but I really stand here representing my spiritual community, X-Church, which I know there's a lot of people watching online, so I just want to shout out to all of them, and my family. In fact, I brought a picture of my family because I just love to brag on them. They could stick up. My wife, Laura Lee, is here in the front row, and I'm so grateful for her support and love. I love you, honey. And we've been blessed with two beautiful daughters, Lauren and Audrey, who grew up in our spiritual community, met their husbands in our community. Can I just tell you, if you're single, best place to find someone to spend the rest of your life with is in a community like Mosaic. It's not at a bar, it's not at a club, it's in Mosaic, okay? They met their husbands, they're married, and our oldest daughter and her husband, Hunter, have given us a 2-year-old grandson named Cohen, who is just the joy of our lives right now. I don't know how else to describe it. People told me one day you become a grandparent, they're like, it is better than being a parent, and it is so true. It is so true. And I know what some of you are thinking. You're way too young looking to have a grandson, and thank you so much. I appreciate that. But believe it or not, my wife and I are actually getting to celebrate our 30 years of wedding, 30 years anniversary this coming year. So if you're doing the math, I was 14, and it's just hard for me to imagine because life goes so fast. Like, I remember it like it was yesterday when we were raising a 2-year-old, and now she's raising a 2-year-old. And time is one of the most fundamental yet confusing realities we experience. It's the most consistent thing we have in the universe, and yet it always feels like it's changing. Have you ever had a day at work that went so slow that you could imagine time was moving so slow, and then there's other seasons where it's like a year will fly by and you didn't even realize where it went? I mean, some of you are in your early 20s, and you think that you have all the time in the world. And take it from somebody who's lived a little bit. One day you're going to wake up, and you're going to realize that you had more days behind you than ahead of you. I think James, the half-brother of Jesus, got it right when he was contemplating life. I want you to hear this in James chapter 4, verse 14. Here's what he said. He said, "What is your life?" That's a deep question. He says, "You are a what?" Would you all say that word out loud? You're a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Wow, isn't that so encouraging? Your life is just like a vapor. It's here today, it's gone tomorrow. Like, James, are you depressed? What's wrong with you, right? I don't think James is a nihilist. I think if James were here today, I think he would grab us by the shoulders and he would shake us and say, guys, time is so short. Life is so brief. Do something intentional with it. I was reminded of this on February 16th. We were at church. It was a Sunday like this. And in the middle of our 1045 experience, a massive snowstorm just dumped. If you don't know what that is, it's this white powdery stuff that y'all don't know what that is in LA, do you? And the roads were terrible, and my wife and I had to go to a special lunch about 20 minutes away. And so after church, we're driving in our separate vehicles, and we're on the phone, Bluetooth, hands-free, of course. And I was remarking, I was like, man, these roads are terrible, or it's my tires, I don't know. And I had to change lanes to get over and get off the freeway and exit. And the moment I did that, my car just began to spin out of control. And I'm going 60 miles an hour spinning in the middle of the freeway. I just want you to imagine, like for you, that's like, could you imagine being on the 405 and you're going 60 miles an hour and that, well, actually, I don't think I've ever gotten to 60 miles an hour on the 405. Don't think that's possible. But I'm spinning sideways in the middle of the freeway. It is a weird feeling, and it felt like time slowed way down. And I could see the guardrail coming. And I was bracing for impact. Now imagine my wife. She's in the other car. She's not seeing this, but she is hearing it because we're on the phone. And all she hears is, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh shoot, oh shoot, oh shoot, oh shoot, bam. Now in all transparency, it was something like that. I don't know if those were the exact words. It was close to that. And I don't know if there was an angel with me in the car that day, but somehow I managed to not hit another single car, and I slammed into the guardrail twice, totaled my vehicle, and I walked away without a scratch. But I also walked away, yeah, I'm grateful, but I also walked away with a reminder that life is short, and none of us know if we have tomorrow. Maybe that's why I wrote my new book, Don't Wing It. It's because one of the things I've done is I've lived enough life to see how valuable it is. And I've had enough years now under my belt to look back and realize that every decision and choice you make, especially if you're young, creates the future that you will experience. And so I took the last 30 years of my life in the most practical way I can. It's a very practical book. I was writing it for my daughters who are young adults in their 20s. And I wanted to show them and anyone else that the decisions that you make today are so critical to creating the future that you want to live, that you want to experience. And here's the amazing thing. The future hasn't been written yet. It hasn't. And some of you might be here today and you think, man, I don't feel like I have much future ahead of me. Some of you might think, if you knew what I've done, where I've been, how lost or how addicted, or if you know what my story has been, you wouldn't think there's much future for me either. But I want to remind you of something. Your past does not dictate your future. It's what you do in the present that dictates your future, and it is never too late to create a new future. It's never too late. I don't care if you're 21, 41, or 61. You can still create a new future. In fact, I think probably the best metaphor that Jesus ever gave for this reality is found in Matthew chapter 25. If you brought a copy of your scriptures, that's where I want to be today. Matthew 25. In this chapter, Jesus shares three stories, three metaphors to help us understand a deeper reality than what we all experience here on earth. He talks about the kingdom of heaven. And I think a lot of times we hear those words, we immediately think, oh, he must be talking about some magical place with golden streets and pearly gates. But anytime Jesus talked about the kingdom of heaven, he rarely talked about a place. He was always talking about a deeper reality than what you and I experience on earth. He was talking about God's perspective on life because our vantage point is so limited here on life. And in Matthew chapter 25 and verse 14, here's one of the stories Jesus shared. He said, again, it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his wealth to them. To one he gave 5 bags of gold, to another 2 bags, and to another 1 bag, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received 5 bags of gold went at once and put his money to work, and he gained 5 bags more. So also the one with 2 bags of gold gained 2 more. But the man who had received 1 bag went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. Now, when you see this story of a wealthy man who lives in Beverly Hills, who's going on an extended business trip, he leaves his wealth to 3 of his attendants. And he doesn't give the wealth, I don't know if you noticed this, evenly. One gets 5 bags of gold, one gets 2 bags, and one gets 1 bag of gold. And sometimes when I've read this story, the thought that comes to me is, that seems so unfair. Why not even it up a little bit? Why make it different for each of them? And I think the reason why sometimes we may feel this way is because we always project ourselves into the story. And whenever I do that, I always feel like the guy who got 1 bag. Anybody ever feel like that about your life? You're the 1 bag guy, you know, the 1 bag girl. Like, it's like when I look at other people, I realize, wow, they got a lot more. God, if you were handing out gifts and talent and ability and good looks, okay, they got 5, I got 1, right? I've never been the smartest person in my class. In fact, I'm not even the smartest person in my family. I've never been the quickest or the fastest or the first chosen for the basketball team. And when I look at my life, to be honest, I always would classify myself as a jack of all, master of none kind of person. Like, I'm just a pastor. That's what I always would think, right? In fact, I would look at other people like Pastor Irwin. I go, he got 5 bags. That guy got 5 bags. I mean, a brilliant pastor, amazing communicator, and author, and he's a business leader and coach. He's a filmmaker. He's a fashion designer. He's a futurist. I don't even know what a futurist is. Like, he got 5 bags. I got 1, okay? But here's the thing about the kingdom of heaven that Jesus was always trying to help us see. That in God's perspective, in his reality, most of the time what we see is actually upside down or backwards from the truth. A lot of times when we look at this story, we might miss what the master was really giving them. Because we put a disproportionate value, this is what we did, we put a disproportionate value on money in our society. But can I tell you what he was really giving them? He wasn't giving them money to keep. He was entrusting it to them. He was actually giving them an expectation. It wasn't the weight of the gold that was significant. It was the weight of the responsibility that he put on each of them. And so when he sees the guy with 5, he said, I'm giving this. This isn't yours to keep. I'm loaning it to you. But there is a heavy expectation on your life because so often the things in the kingdom of heaven are backwards. In fact, Jesus would say things all the time like, if you want to be first, you got to be last. You want to be the greatest? Be the servant. And if I could maybe convince you today, because many of you might feel like the 1 bag person, I might try to tell you that the guy who got 1 bag of gold might have gotten something of more value than the other 2. Because here's what we know to be true about life. The less you have of something, the more valuable it is to you. You know the last piece of cake? That's the most coveted one. When you know that you only have a limited amount of time, it becomes so incredibly valuable. I'm a huge car enthusiast. One of my favorite things about coming to Los Angeles is that this place has a lot of fast, exotic cars. And I don't really see a lot of those in Columbus, Ohio, to be honest with you. And here's the thing. Whenever I'm driving in LA and I see, say, a Toyota Corolla, it doesn't turn my head, right? I mean, if you have a Toyota Corolla, I mean no offense by this, but it is the most popular car in the world. Over 55 million Corollas have been produced. And you can buy a new one, they say, for around $25,000. Now, it might be a little more than that in LA from what I hear, but here's the thing. It doesn't grab my attention, and yet there's more Corollas than anything else in this world. But what did grab my attention was in 2016, the first time I ever came to Los Angeles. We wanted to visit Rodeo Drive because I'm a 90210 kid. I mean, I didn't grow up there. I watched it. And so we came in 2016 for the first time, and with some friends, and we wanted to hit all the iconic spots. So we went to Rodeo Drive, and we're walking down the street, going in and out of all of these shops that we can't afford anything. And we come out, and I remember I turned my head, and I see this on the side of the road. This is a Bugatti Veyron, and this is actually an iconic car that for many years was parked every day on Rodeo Drive in front of the House of Bijan, Iranian fashion designer that did a collab with Bugatti. There were only 450 of these made, and to buy one back then would cost you $1.7 million. So you can imagine when I saw that, I was drooling, and I took pictures with it, right? But that doesn't even compare to a car that was built before I was even born, and that is this 1963 Ferrari 250 GTO. In the 60s, for just 2 years or so, Ferrari only built 36 of them. And this particular one that I'm showing you a picture of, chassis 4153 GT, is really rare. Because this one won the 1964 Tour de France. And when this went up for auction, I believe in 2018, it sold for just over $70 million. My point is this: the less you have of something, the more valuable it is. Can I tell you what is the most valuable thing that you and I have been given? Our one life. Your one life is the most valuable thing that you have. The number of birthdays you have left is the most valuable thing, the most valuable resource that you and I have. You have been given this one life to live by your Creator. And the beautiful part about this is that you are even more rare than that. You're 1 out of 8 billion, or 1 of 1. There is no one on this planet that is like you. There's no one else that has the same makeup and capacity and the gifts and the things that God put into your life. And so the question I have for you, Mosaic, is what will you do with the one life that you've been given? And you might think, I don't have that much. If you're not familiar with this metaphor, you don't know what it represents. Let me fill in the blanks. This metaphor that Jesus shares, in it, the master is Jesus. And the servants, if you're a follower of Jesus, that's us. He's looking at his disciples. He was about to go give his life for humanity on a cross, and he was looking at them, and he was saying, I'm entrusting my mission to you. You know what Jesus was all about when he was here on earth? Before, it was ultimately to go to the cross, but his time on earth, you know what it was about? He was all about bringing heaven to earth. That's what his desire was. And I think he would look at you and me today here, and he would say, if there's one thing that I could inspire you to do with your life, it's to bring heaven to earth around you, to bring hope to the hopeless, to bring help to those who are harassed, to actually be a kind of a conduit of his presence and his heaven. Bring it to earth. That's what Jesus would say if he'd look at us. And so he gives these servants, and he splits it up. If you're not familiar with the story, the guy who got 5, he immediately went, and the story says that he put it to work. To work it. Everybody say work it. Work it. He put it to work. And he doubled it. And when the master came back, and Jesus is telling us this story to remind us all that one day we all stand before our Creator and give an account for the life that he's given to us, what he's put in front of us. And he shows them, he says, I came back with 10. And the master says to him, well done, come on and share in this. You get to be part of it. And the guy that had 2, guess what he did? He worked it. And he produced 2 more. And when the master shows up, he says, I've got 4. Look what I did. And he says, well done. Come on. You get to be part of it. Share in my happiness. But the guy who had 1, well, he did something different with it. He buried it. And when the master showed up, I want you to hear his response. Here's what he said to him in verse 24. It says, the man who had received 1 bag of gold came. Master, he said, I knew that you're a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was what? Would you all say that word? I was afraid, and I went out and hid your gold in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you. The guy with 1 bag knew there was an expectation on his life. But his response was what? Fear. And if we're not careful, fear will lead us to do the same thing with our life. Fear is the thing that causes us to be stingy rather than generous. Because I'm afraid there won't be enough for me, that I won't actually take how God's blessed me and use it to help others. Fear will cause us to miss opportunities in life to create the future that we really want because we might fail, and that would be embarrassing. Fear is the very agent that sometimes paralyzes us, where we're afraid to make the wrong decision and screw up, so instead we make no decision at all. That's what fear does in our lives. Fear will actually keep you from stepping into the life that God created you to live. Can I remind us of what Pastor Irwin said 2 weeks ago when Jesus spoke to his disciples? He said that you're going to do greater things than I did. But why is it we don't see that? I would argue that sometimes it's we don't have the courage to take a step of faith and to do something that's risky and bold because we might fail, because fear grips us. We don't know exactly what this guy's fear was. He might have been afraid of failing the master. He might have been afraid of losing what he was entrusted with. He might have been afraid of just being a failure. We don't know what it is, but when I was reading this story and I was thinking about my own life and the fears that often drive me, you know what I discovered? Oftentimes, I'm not actually afraid of failing God. I'm rather afraid of failing myself. I'm afraid of other people thinking that I'm a failure. Oftentimes, I'm not afraid of disappointing God. I'm afraid of disappointing myself, disappointing my family. And often fear is the response that causes us to bury what God has entrusted to us. I want you to hear what the master says in response. Verse 26, his master replied, "You wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. Well, then you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers, so that when I returned, I would have received it back with interest. So take the bag of gold from him and give it to the one who has 10 bags." Do you know what he's really saying? He's saying, if you're not going to do something with it, I'll give it to someone else. If you're going to allow fear to keep you from fulfilling the expectation of your Creator, I'll give it to someone else. I'll give it to the bankers. Do you know that bankers have to take risk in order to give you interest? This is the response for all of us. In this story, Jesus is saying there's two responses to the one life that he's given to you. You either work it or you waste it. There's no in between. I don't think most of us would ever think of our lives and go, man, I feel like I'm wasting my life. I don't think any of us intentionally do that. But sometimes we don't live with enough intention. Maybe what we're doing is just winging it. I'm just going wherever the money leads. I'm just doing what feels great, doing what feels good to me. I'm doing what's safe. We're just managing our way through life without an intention to actually create something where you can bring heaven to earth around you, to do good with your life. This is what a lot of us maybe are tempted to do because of fear. Fear will paralyze you, and it'll take faith to unlock what God has actually created you to do. I never felt this tension more than in 2016. In that year of leading our church back in Columbus, Ohio, we had reached a point where we had just out of capacity. We had 2 locations. In order for us to continue just to help people get on the path to God, that's our mission, I knew we were going to have to take a bold step. And so we went to our church and we had some land, and we did a campaign, and we said we want to build a facility that's so expensive. It's millions of dollars. And it was the scariest thing I've ever tried to lead in my life. And yet that year, can I just say, it felt like we just had God with us. I don't know how else to describe it. But we did a campaign, and the church was just in on it. They're like, oh, we'll support it. The company, an organization that would come fund us, they said, we'll loan you millions of dollars. I mean, it didn't even make sense. Banks wouldn't do that. And then we had somebody that wanted to buy our building who was in our church that said, you can stay here until the new one's built. Just pay us rent. I mean, it was just all coming together. The city gave us a permit to begin to move dirt that year. And so in 2016, in the fall, we did a groundbreaking ceremony. We're like, this is amazing. In December, we started to move dirt. 3 weeks after that, the city gave me a call one day. They said, we've got some serious problems. We need you not just to stop the work you're doing, but we need you to remove all of the equipment from the site. We've got major civil engineering challenges. And for the next year and a half, our project was paused. A year and a half. It was the most frustrating season of my life. We dealt with internal drama and inside of our church. Hundreds of people had left. The city was making us pay tens of thousands of dollars to try to address these crazy civil engineering challenges. I got to be honest with you, it was the most frustrating season of my life. I must have said this 4-letter F word 1,000 times for that year and a half. FEMA. Oh, it was so awful. What'd you think I said? You're like, this is a cussing pastor. I'm not, I promise you. I actually believed at one point that I might bankrupt this work that I've invested my life in for 17 years. In the fall of 2018, the city finally gave us a green light to move forward. The only problem was, in that delay, the cost of construction was skyrocketing. And without changing a single thing on our project, the cost went up by $2.5 million. I said, we don't have that. And I called the company that was going to fund us, and I told them, I said, hey, good news, bad news. They gave us a green light, $2.5 million more. We don't have it. And he was like, you know what? It's okay. We'll lend you the extra $2.5 million. I said, that's wonderful. I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to pay this. Literally, our mortgage went up 10x. Finally, with no other options and just prayer and just like, okay, is this what we're supposed to do, God? It was the scariest step I'd ever taken, but we moved forward with it. We had another groundbreaking ceremony. We had another delay. We didn't get started until spring of 2019, and finally it was moving forward, and the building is scheduled to open fall of 2020. Anybody remember that year? That beautiful year. Most of us have just struck it from the record. I don't want to remember that year. And at fall of 2020, we walked into a brand new building having to combine our two locations because hundreds of people were no longer going to church. And I didn't know what would happen, but I literally believed that I may have just ruined everything with this bold step of faith. But I want to stand here today and tell you, even since that moment, that God was with us. Sometimes you don't realize it when you take a bold step of faith and you have the courage to try something that feels impossible, but that's when God shows up the most. And I'm telling you, we have made the mortgage payment every month so far, and I'm so grateful to God for that. Since we opened that facility, we've seen over 1,500 people place their faith in Jesus Christ. We've baptized hundreds of people in that time. I'm telling you that there's a future ahead of all of us, but it's going to take courage to step into it. It's going to take intentionality. You can't just go through life and wing it. You're going to have a meaningful purpose to run after in your life. I think the greatest tragedy in our life isn't that maybe we would screw up and fail. I think the greatest tragedy is that we would do nothing with the one life that God has given to us. So I don't know about you, but I don't want to do that. I want to take every bold opportunity that's in front of me, even if I might fail. And you know what I've discovered about God? God does not care when you screw up. The only way you fail God with your life is when you do nothing with the one life that He's given you. That's the only way that you'll actually fail God. And so my question for you today, Mosaic, what's the intention that you're running after? What are you creating with your life? You don't have to be a pastor. God's not calling all of you to start a church like I did. Maybe even start a business or a nonprofit. But I'm telling you, you are one of one. You are rare, and God has deposited in you. There's an expectation on you. And He wants you to live a life of meaning and purpose. If you say, I don't know how to do that, I don't even know where to begin. Maybe you're here and you're like, that sounds so foreign to me. Can I tell you what helped me get started on that? I was in a community just like this, and I just said yes when they needed someone to serve. I said yes when they needed someone to give. I just actually gave myself to the mission of a movement like Mosaic. You could do that. If you don't know how to create intention for your life, start right here, and God will begin to open doors, and He'll begin to show you what He created you for. And next thing you know, you're going to be living life on the edge, and it's going to be the greatest ride of your life. I don't know how many birthdays I have left. All I know is what James said, my life is a mist. Here today and gone tomorrow. The last thing I want to do is waste it. Would you pray with me today? God, I'm so grateful for the calling, the things that you put into my life. And I'm grateful for what you put into the life of every person here, Culver City, Studio City. God, I pray that this truth would resonate so deeply in our soul today. That every person here would know that there is an intention for their life, that their Creator gave them, and there's an expectation that we would do something with the one life that we've been given. I pray by your Spirit, God, that you would reveal what that next step looks like. That we wouldn't leave here today just saying, okay, I feel fired up, but that we would actually consider what's the bold step that you're asking us to take to bring heaven to earth. Maybe you're here today and you don't know how to begin a life of meaning and intention. I'll tell you the way you can actually get started on that. It is only found in a relationship with Jesus. That's been my reality. The world will offer you money, success, fame, notoriety, but that does not last and it will not satisfy your soul. But the way to create a life of intention and meaning is to actually begin a relationship with God through Jesus. And the way that happens is by faith. This whole thing we've been talking about is taking a step of faith, and it's risky and scary, and some of you maybe have never done something like that, or maybe it's been a while and you just recognize that you have wandered away from God. And maybe in this moment you just sense God just calling you, drawing you to make a declaration of faith and say, today, from this moment forward, I'm creating a new future with you, God. If you're here today at any of the locations and you want to make that decision today, would you just lift your hand up and just hold it up high right now for a moment? Thank God for you and you. I see you over there. Anybody else here? That's your decision today. Praise God. It begins with a simple prayer of faith. All you need to say, and this is what I invite you to say, Jesus, I give you my life. I want you to do that. Those of you that raise your hands, I just want you to say that right now. I want you to say, Jesus, I give you my life. I give you my future. Whatever it looks like, I trust it to you. Father, I pray for every person that just lifted their hands, every person today making a decision of faith. I pray, God, that you'd walk with them. They would know your presence from this moment forward. I pray, God, you begin to show them the intention of their life and what you created them to do. God, we thank you for your presence here today and speaking to each of us. It's in Jesus' name we pray. And everybody said with me, amen, amen. Can we just celebrate with those who just declared by faith Jesus is their Savior? Thank you, Mosaic. God bless you.